come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Well. What a night we're going to have tonight. You're live. It's direct. And you're in the saloon. Whose saloon? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelins Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show. It's Thursday. It's December 21st, the year of our Lord, 2017. You got a belly up to the bar. We've kept your seat. That's great to see you back. Angel is going to be your bartendress tonight. She pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is in fact lighted, as you can see, to my left, your right. Oh, did I mention C? Yes, I did. If you want to watch the show, go to the SHR Media Facebook page. Go to the SHR Media YouTube channel. Two ways of watching the buttery goodness of this show. What show? Glad you asked. We'll get to that in just a second, but I want to tell you this. We don't water our drinks, just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All we ask is that you flush the damn toilet, jiggle the handle. I just cleaned it, okay? Jiggle the handle, and don't forget to tip your waitress. Tonight is an unusual night. Number one, the cord is hanging down from the stupid microphone. I've put it up about 10 times, and I'm giving up. I'm not doing that. Not anymore. Okay, let's switch over to another mode here. There we go. We're in bat mode. Bat mode, what the hell is that? That's turning up the volume on the microphone is what that is. We have an unusual show for you tonight. Gosh, BZ, how unusual would that be? Well, we're going to talk about something that actually to date we have never really spoken about here in the Saloon. Now, we've kind of glossed over it a little bit in Sackheads, but tonight we're going to be talking about politics and the paranormal. Once we get into that, you will understand the linkage between all of this, because our special guest tonight is going to be Alan Thomas, formerly of Paranormal Central, and now he's skied out on his own. And after that, we're going to speak to the East Coast political goddess herself, Carrie Baxter Donovan. And I'm basically going to be asking her, hey, what do you think some of the most important, or perhaps even unimportant, events or non-events, non-starters, so to speak, might have been in the year 2017, just like I asked Dan Butcher that very self-same question last Tuesday here in the Saloon. And then Dan and I ran away for 2 hours of more buttery political goodness talking about that one particular thing. But I've got some other articles, some other things that I want to talk about before we get into that, because I've got two really good things that fall under this.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
Here's one of them. Hundreds attend a funeral honoring an abandoned Vietnam veteran. This was wonderful. I would play the video of this, but I have to haul down the road, so to speak. Hundreds of strangers gathered at a church in Indianapolis, Indiana, Saturday to honor a Vietnam veteran with no known living relatives. Glenn Shelton, 68, who had a storied career with the Marines during the Vietnam War and earned a Purple Heart while serving with them, died November 26th, according to his obituary. Indiana Funeral Care organized Saturday's service and advertised it on a social media. The event grew so popular, the organizers had to move the ceremony to a larger venue. We don't know anything about him, so it's just rewarding that they can still find time to come out and pay their respects, Sarah Thompson, Indiana Funeral Care General Manager, told a radio station. Glenn might have been abandoned in life, but he will not be abandoned in death. That's a wonderful thing. Happy story number 2, at least in old BZ's eyes. The headline goes something like this. Lawmakers defy atheists and ring Salvation Army bells. Salvation Army bells, BZ, whatever do you mean? Oh, you mean you're linking it to the Christmas season. And yes, Merry Christmas, one and all. I should say that right now, because this is the last show until Christmas. Now, I will be back next week, every Tuesday and Thursday, just like clockwork, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. But this is it until Christmas. I come back the very next day, the day after Christmas. Sackheads will be here on Wednesday, and then I'll be returning on Thursday. In any event, a group of Republican lawmakers in Connecticut said that they would not allow themselves to be bullied by a bunch of what they termed angry out-of-town atheists. The Freedom From Religion Foundation, please note the difference, not the Freedom of Religion, but the Freedom From Religion Foundation, a Wisconsin-based horde of atheists, agnostics, and freethinkers, were outraged after they learned the Republican lawmakers were raising money for the Salvation Army. I received a letter from the group, and they suggested quite strongly that I should refrain from volunteering from any organization or charity that is religious-based. State Senator George Logan told the Todd Starnes radio show. For the several past years, Republicans in the Connecticut House and Senate have volunteered their time to ring bells during the Salvation Army's Red Kettle Drive. And, of course, you see the red kettle just about everywhere. We urge you to consider, the letter wrote, supporting only secular charities in the future. This will ensure that representatives do not give the appearance of promoting an overtly Christian mission and will prevent citizens from feeling ostracized by their elected representatives because of their religious beliefs or sexual preference. I wonder what sexual preference has to do with a red kettle. Imagine that. Anyway, in my estimation, that's a happy story and a good time. I don't have... Oh, yes! I do have time for one more. I got about 2 minutes. This, according to BZ, is a happy story. DA, District Attorney. Grandma justified in shooting and killing attacker in pet spa. Some of this stuff I just absolutely love, and that's why I bring it to you, okay? North Carolina's, do you ever see a linkage of some of these states? North Carolina's Cabarrus County District Attorney's Office says that the grandma who shot and killed an attacker, you're going to love the business name, shot and killed an attacker at Sarah's Pet Spa, was justified in doing so. The grandma's name is Sarah Shue, can't write that, and the incident occurred in November with the DA ruling on Friday. According to local TV sources, Deshaun Tatum forcefully and unlawfully entered the spa and started attacking Shue's boyfriend. Her 2 grandchildren were present as well, and Shue feared for their safety. Tatum left after a heated verbal exchange, only to return with a group of individuals who were yelling expletives at Shue. Shue called 911, and while she was talking to the dispatcher, a fight erupted between Tatum and Shue's boyfriend. Her 2 grandchildren were standing by her side when Tatum began moving toward her. The 911 dispatcher listened as Shue shot Tatum. She then returned to the phone and said, "I just shot one, and I'm going to shoot the rest of them." She then told the dispatcher, they're going to get guns. They said, "You better hurry." The dispatcher assured her that officers were on the way, then asked if Tatum was hurt. She responded, I shot him in the face. He's probably dead." Okay, that works for me. Now we're going to transition immediately, and I want to play this right now, because this is one of the reasons that I wanted Alan Thomas on the show. I've heard him before, I've met him, etc. We'll get into that. But it seems that this week, there's been a very strange push where what I call the American media maggots, or the mainstream media, are beginning to recognize that there's odd stuff going on. And when you're appearing on a fighter pilot is appearing on Tucker Carlson's show, and when these folks are starting to take this seriously.
UFOs have been the
Then I think it's time for everyone to take it seriously.
stuff of conspiracy theorists for decades, often mocked for talking about it, but maybe they shouldn't be mocked. Commander David Fravor spent 18 years as a naval aviator, a pilot. In 2004, he had an unforgettable encounter with an aircraft he said was defying the laws of physics. Former Commander Fravor joins us tonight. Thanks a lot for coming on tonight. Tell us what you saw.
Well, we had launched on a routine training mission. When we joined up, we were told that the event was going to be canceled and that we have real-world tasking, and we were sent out to the west. Now, take in mind that this has taken place about 100 miles southwest of San Diego, between San Diego and Ensenada, Mexico, on a clear, perfect...
Okay, by the way, stop right there. I'm going to get into it, but I saw a UFO, and it was in San Diego. Actually, it was in a little spirit near that, an area where my brother and his wife live, in Coronado. And it's very active, incredibly active military area down there.
Day, blue waters. We get out to the spot where they tell us it's at. We start looking around, and both airplanes see a disturbance in the water and a white 40-foot long tic-tac shaped object just hovering above the water, going forward, back, left, right. There's no rotor wash, there's no wings, nothing. So as we drive around in a clockwise flow, we get to about the 9 o'clock position, and I said, well, I'm going to go down and check it out, and the other jet is going to stay high. So as we go down, when we get to the 12 o'clock position, it starts to mirror us. So it's in a clockwise flow, and it's on the opposite side of the circle from us. And we continue this. It's in a climb. We're in a descent. We're getting a great look at it. This whole thing takes about probably up to 5 minutes from the time we show up. I get over to the 8 o'clock position. It's at about the 2 o'clock position, and I decide I'm going to go and see what it is, and it's about 2,000 feet below me. And I cut across the circle, and as I get within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerates to the south in about 2 seconds and disappears.
What would you estimate the speed?
Oh, well above supersonic. It like a bullet out of a gun, it took off.
So from what you know about aerodynamics, mechanics, physics, should this be possible, what you saw?
Not with the technology that we have today.
Thank you.
Not at all.
Even now, even 13 years later,
Thank you.
Is there anything that you know of capable of this kind of behavior?
No, there's nothing I know of. I mean, when we saw the video with the IR, it has no exhaust, no discernible things of anything form of propulsion. And this thing came from a dead hover over the water, just kind of moving around, to a climb up to about 12,000 feet to rapidly accelerating away in a climb, and in less than 2 seconds it was gone. And you figure you're talking 50 miles of visibility, and you can easily see an object that size easily out to 10 miles, and it just disappeared in seconds.
What would be the effects on a human pilot of the G-forces involved in that altitude change?
Holy crap.
Well, the altitude wouldn't be bad. It would be the acceleration of the object.
Right.
Honestly, I wanted to fly it.
Yeah,
but, talking to some physicists,
Hell yeah.
they don't think the human body could handle that kind of force with that acceleration.
It doesn't sound like the human body could. So bottom line, what do you think this was?
I believe, as do the other folks that were on the flight when we visually saw it, that it was something not from this world.
When presumably you expressed that belief to your superiors, what did they say?
Yeah.
Well, actually, we caught a lot of grief getting back to the boat, and it got passed off as an event that no one could explain. Now, keep in mind, they had been tracking these for 2 weeks prior to us seeing it, and this was the first time that manned airplanes had been airborne.
They'd been tracking it for 2 weeks prior. That's also called a clue.
When the objects appeared.
This feels like a really big story to me. It's not exactly clear why Vladimir Putin's more interesting than this. I think this seems like a big deal. And Commander, I appreciate your taking the time to talk to us about it. You seem sober and believable, and I appreciate it.
Why, thank you very much, Tucker.
Thanks.
It is a big deal. It's a really big deal. It's a huge deal. Now, ramping up to this, that was one particular article, and I happened to watch that on Tucker Carlson. I think that guy was on not not Wednesday night, not last night, but I think he was on Tuesday night. And I happened to be watching it because I record Tucker Carlson every night. And I got to that and I thought, okay, finally this UFO stuff seems to be breaking kind of mainstream. But I was wondering, what are all these? Are these coincidences that various mainstream venues are starting to pick this stuff up? Because there was another article that just was released this week. Now, it was covered by any number of organizations, but here's one. This is from the UK Independent, and frequently, as you well know, if you listen to the show, I like to get a number of my articles, and I always make sure that I scan UK news because I've discovered over the years they will cover things that the American media maggots here in the States will not. They didn't just happen to cover this. Lots of other organizations covered it. But in my opinion, the way they crafted the headline and the way they wrote the article basically framed this the best. And the article went like this. Pentagon admits it ran secret multi-million-dollar UFO program between 2007 and 2012. And again, this is from the UK Independent. The Pentagon has admitted it ran a secret program tasked with investigating sightings of unidentified flying objects, or UFOs. Although the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program ended 5 years ago when U.S. defense officials shifted attention and funding to other priorities, it remains unclear if it has continued to investigate sightings of mysterious vehicles. The program ran from 2007 to 2012. The interesting thing about this article, and the interesting thing about the way that a lot of other media organizations all seemed to cover this, and I was curious, is it because of the slant with regard to the Pentagon? Is it because of the slant with regard to the government itself? Or is it the slant because of the cash that's involved and that the government is specifically saying, yeah, we spent money on this program? And the other thing is, I was wondering, okay, is the UFO issue, is that the critical element of all this, or is it just sort of the underlying subtext? And the way they framed and crafted this article, it seems quite obvious to me that they did this in terms of they're actually bringing and acknowledging that UFOs exist, and they're bringing this to the forefront. Alan Thomas was supposed to have called by 8:15. It's 8:20. I'm checking my social media to see if there's anything going on, and I haven't received a message. So we may be involved in a Semper Gumby situation, and that is always flexible. So if he doesn't call in, I've got some other places that we can go, and we may not go all that much paranormal. But one of the other things that I can do is I'll tell you about a particular experience that I had personally, and it was down in San Diego, Coronado specifically. And then if it turns out that Alan Thomas doesn't call in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the phone lines. I'll give you the phone number, and the phone number I think is going to be on the screen. Well, let's go over here and look and see if the phone number is in fact on the screen. Yes, there it is. If you happen to be watching on YouTube, on the SHR Media channel, there it is at the bottom of the screen. If you happen to be listening to the SHR Media Facebook page, we're also live on the Facebook page, and the number is at the bottom of the screen. So if Alan Thomas doesn't call in, I'm going to open up the phone lines, and if you guys are brave enough to tell me if you've had any paranormal experiences, and I'm not going to limit it to any of that. I'm going to say if you've had any odd experiences where you've been involved with any form of the paranormal, any form of something that you simply could not explain. If it involves, for example, Alan Thomas happens to be quite involved as a Sasquatch hunter, a Sasquatch expert and researcher. That's his area, so to speak. If you have anything involving an incident like that, UFOs, things that you just couldn't explain. I have one very definite experience, and I predicate this upon the fact that I'm a skeptic. My wife knows that in terms of skepticism, I'm the ultimate shit show skeptic. That said, there were some things that I saw that made me believe, and you can call me wacky, call me whatever you want, tinfoil hat wearer. There is no tinfoil under this right now, I will tell you. There's only sort of a bald, long-haired, semi-covered pate up here of my luxuriant thatch. I don't wear tinfoil, but I have been disabused for a number of years now of thinking that in the galaxy that we're alone. I do not believe that we are alone. Anyway, I was telling you that this particular program at the Pentagon ran from 2007 to 2012, and now they released the information. It's documented. They spent $22 million on it. Now, taken in perspective, that's really not all that much money. But to have the U.S. government and or the Pentagon or the Department of Defense admit that they spent what could be considered to some a fairly sizable amount of cash on this, that's relatively amazing. It was 22 million. My mistake. It was $22 million, not a one-time effort, but $22 million per year between 2007 and 2012. All right, that makes a little bit of a difference. The thing I found interesting in the article is it said this budget was hidden in the U.S. Defense Department budget, worth hundreds of billions of dollars. And the New York Times reported on this. And that's another thing that I found kind of interesting. Also, one aspect of this, a sidebar, is that NASA is looking for a full-time role as a protection officer for space. They pay as much as £141,000 a year. The successful candidate will ensure that humans in space do not contaminate planets, as well as protecting the Earth from alien matter. There you go. NASA for you. Continuing on with this article, initial funding came largely at the request of former, and this is very important as well. Initial funding came largely at the request of former Senate Democrat leader Harry Reid, the Nevada Democrat long known for his enthusiasm for space phenomena, the newspaper said. Well, Harry Reid represented Nevada. What's in Nevada? What do we know about Nevada? They're famous or infamous, I suppose you could say, for Area 51. Area 51 has... people have said that that's one of the places that some of the alien creatures from Roswell were deposited at one point. It took the United States government years to even acknowledge that Area 51 existed, although maps all over Nevada were marked clearly Area 51. And so it wasn't until about maybe 5 or 10 years ago that the U.S. government even began to acknowledge that Area 51 existed, even though for years many people had been taking photographs of Area 51 and had been noticing objects, lights, etc., odd objects all around the skies at night and during the day. Now, also, with this caveat, Area 51 has also been an area of experimentation for many years, all the way from the F-117 Stealth up to the B-1B bomber, and all the stealth programs in between, Have Blue, etc. All of these things were created, tested, experimented upon, flown from Area 51. So I just find that linkage kind of interesting between that and Harry Reid. Most of the money went to an aerospace research company run by Robert Bigelow, a billionaire entrepreneur and longtime friend of Mr. Reid. I'm not embarrassed or ashamed or sorry that I got this thing going, Mr. Reid told the New York Times. But according to its backers, the program remains in existence, which I find Interesting. And officials continue to investigate UFO episodes brought to their attention by service members alongside their other duties, the paper said. Now it moves to Politico, which covers, obviously, political stories. A former congressional staffer told the Politico news website that the program may have been established to monitor whether a rival foreign power had developed potentially threatening next-generation technology. Was this China or Russia trying to do something, or has some kind of propulsion system we're not familiar with, they asked. The Pentagon openly acknowledged the fate of the program. The Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program ended in the 2012 timeframe. Laura Ochoa, a spokeswoman, said, "It was determined that there were other higher priority issues that merited funding, and it was in the best interest of the Department of Defense to make a change." But the Pentagon was less clear about whether the program has continued since then. The DoD takes seriously all threats and potential threats to our people, our assets, and our mission, and takes action whenever credible information is developed, Ms. Ochoa said. And then in the article, here's a tweet from Senator Harry Reid, direct from him, and it says, "The truth is out there." Seriously. And then he quotes a New York Times article. Here we go. This is from the New York Times. The headline is, "Glowing Auras and Black Money. The Pentagon's Mysterious UFO Program." Listen.
They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like look at that thing. It's rotating.
It's rotating, they said, which I find extremely interesting. The New York Times says Washington, in the $600 billion annual Defense Department budgets, the $22 million spent on the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program was almost impossible to find, which was how the Pentagon wanted it. For years, the program investigated reports of unidentified flying objects, according to Defense Department officials, interviews with program participants, and records obtained by the New York Times. It was run by the military intelligence official Luis Elizondo on the 5th floor of the Pentagon's C Ring, deep within the building's maze. The Defense Department has never before acknowledged the existence of the program, which it says it shut down in 2012. But its backers, again, another source, another separate source, its backers say that while the Pentagon ended funding for the effort at that time, the program remains in existence. For the past 5 years, they say, officials with the program have continued to investigate episodes brought to them by service members while they carry out their duties, other duties, within the Defense Department. The shadowy program, parts of it remain classified, began in 2007, and initially was largely funded at the specific request of Harry Reid, the Nevada Democrat who was the Senate majority leader at the time, and who has long had an interest in space phenomena. Most of the money went to an aerospace research company run by a billionaire entrepreneur and longtime friend of Mr. Reid's, Robert Bigelow, who I mentioned before, who's currently working with NASA to produce expandable craft for humans to live in space. It's time for a break. I'm going to see if, and I've been looking at my media here, I believe that I have a number which I'm going to attempt to call, and we're going to go for a break. We might have to make it a double break depending on whether or not I can get in touch with Alan Thomas here. So, in any event, even if that doesn't go all the way through, if Alan doesn't show up tonight, we're still going to stay on this topic for a while, and then, as you would well and truly expect, oh boy, do I have politics. I'm going over the break, but that's all right. I've told you this before. I run the computer that's right in front of me that runs the video camera. That's on Windows 10. That's a brand new computer that I bought for the studio. The one off to my right over here still runs on Windows 7. So I have to be very careful with this. I can't stack it up too much. Customarily, I'll run a show off of whatever search engine I go to, and I'll run it off of anywhere from 10 to 15 to like 17 tabs. And I just go down the line, tab to tab to tab to various articles, and all the sound cuts that I want, I have to line up chronologically. For this show tonight, it's a wealth of options. There's so much going on in politics. I'm surprised that I haven't crashed that computer that you can't see over here, because I have, for the first time ever, and I don't think this computer's ever had to handle it before, I have 27 tabs open, and that's 27 separate stories that in 2 hours, there's no damn way I'm going to be able to get to. So if you think that BZ lacks for material, no. What he does lack is a guest. But wait, fear not. BZ may in fact not lack a guest, because if you were listening earlier, you know exactly who I'm talking about. We're going to go to a break, and I'm going to see if I can make a quickie phone call. And don't you go away. We are going to talk about some paranormal stuff, and come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope
Alan,
to
it's
the
BZ on the
hopeless.
radio show. Are you there, sir?
Sackhead Sean,
Dude, I'm not saying cow for the stupid bro.
Sackhead Clint,
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Well, we're back. I can say most definitively that I'm back, you're back, no one else is back. So, unfortunately, the two phone numbers that I had for this young man, they are not working real well. So I'll regale you with my tale, and then we're going to shift gears. And then if you are interested and you don't mind regaling us with your tale, the phone lines are open. So I'll tell you this. I'll start it out this way. And I said before, I'm a skeptic with regard to this. I've been a skeptic for many years. I've always been involved and interested in science fiction. Writing, a little bit of it, certainly reading it. My brothers, when I was a small pup, back at the parents' house, got me involved in reading science fiction, and boom, that just took off. So I love all things science fiction. I love the movies. I love the books. If it has anything to do with science fiction, I have watched it, seen it, read about it, etc. I have numerous favorite authors. But not until recently, well, I say recently, let me back up. I say about 2000 and, oh gosh, when was this? My brother lives in San Diego County, and specifically on that little peninsula, they call it an island, but it isn't, of Coronado. Now, Coronado is interesting insofar as it's right in the midst of, say, North Island. So the U.S. Navy has a massive presence down in San Diego. And so does the U.S. Marine Corps. They've got a big airport that parallels Lindbergh Field. Well, let me tell you about Lindbergh Field. If you've ever flown into San Diego, and not out of is not so bad, but flying into San Diego, Lindbergh Field, is a hell of an experience. Because if you ever have, you know that as you're coming in, the angle of attack and approaching, because you approach east to west, and west ends because, after a certain point, it's just the Pacific Ocean and a thin aluminum tube. But as you approach from the east into San Diego, you are literally on eyeball level, especially if you look over to the left, because that's how the buildings are oriented. You are on eyeball level, and people in buildings are looking and watching you land into Lindbergh Field. And the angle of attack is pretty steep. You flare quickly, and the pilot has to slam that bad boy down pretty quickly and then jam on the brakes. So just getting into Lindbergh Field in San Diego is amusing. But it's one of my favorite airports just because of that. And I love the plane ride. In any event, it's surrounded by all sorts of active military bases, the likes of which all utilize aircraft. Now, at night, I was outside in my brother's house, and I was in the midst of 3 or 4 people. And it was a holiday. It might have been Thanksgiving. And folks were going in and out just before dinner. And as it was getting dark, I looked up into the southwest sky. And because I've been interested in aviation for years, I'm an Air Force brat. My dad was retired as a full bird colonel in the Air Force. We lived on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for a while, and I used to watch the B-52s take off and come in and land. Some of the guys used to wave to me back then. So being an Air Force brat, and also from McClellan Air Force Base in Sacramento, I knew all my Cold War aircraft because that's what my dad did. And I've been familiar with aircraft for many, many years. So I know the characteristics of an aircraft. As I looked up into the sky, there was a point of light big enough that I could see it and identify it and note that it was much different from the rest of the background in terms of its brightness, and it wasn't a star, and it wasn't the moon. Obviously, I'm not a dolt. I know the difference between the two. As they say, this one took definitely non-ballistic movements. Now, there are 3 axes in aircraft. There's roll, like this. There's pitch, which is up and down. And there's yaw, which is left to right. And every craft that flies ballistically, the technology the likes of which we're familiar with as human beings on this planet, they act accordingly to the laws of gravity and the laws of ballistics in terms of if something moves, it's going to be straight or it will arc. But it won't act in a fashion that I watched this point of light do that particular night. It moved in a square fashion, both rapidly and slowly. It started out at one point out of the southwest, moved at a diagonal rapidly, and stopped. Now, I know the difference between a jet and a helicopter. Obviously, some people were saying, well, Beezy, that's just a helicopter, right? No, it wasn't. From there, it moved diagonally to the right, stopped, moved all the way down, straight down, vertically, rapidly, then made a box, a square, a box. No ballistic movements whatsoever, rapid acceleration, rapid deceleration, and there was no noise. I contacted a couple of folks and I said, come on out here, take a peek at this, see what's going on. And by that time, who knows where it had gone. And what could I do? What could I say? At the time, not everyone was equipped with these things, with smartphones. And so even if I'd wanted to take a video of that, these things still, as good as they are, don't take great video at night. In any event, that's what happened to me. Now, we're going to see how brave some of you may or may not be. I see Jersey Joe's in chat, Mike's in chat, White Mamba's in chat. I see, Simone, you're in chat. Good to see you. And I see one viewer. If any of you would like to call, and I'm going to give you about 2 or 3 minutes to get your guts up. And if I don't have any calls, then we're going to move on. And as a matter of fact, I already, like I said, I have the East Coast political goddess, Carrie Baxter Donovan, all lined up. And so in the next few minutes, if I don't get a phone call, then I'm going to go to Carrie Baxter Donovan. Carrie, if you happen to be listening, oh, wait a minute, look out. We do have... All right, go ahead, mystery caller. I just picked you up right off the bat. Go ahead. You know the topic that we're talking about? It's the paranormal, UFOs, anything like that. Do you have an experience?
Well, this is Mike. I have a friend that recounts this story to me several times, almost just about every time I see him, about an object the size and shape of a baseball diamond, 90 feet by 90 feet by 90 feet by 90 feet.
Okay.
And he tells me that he sees this thing for less than 30 seconds, and it turns on an edge and just shoots off in 2 seconds, just like the guy said earlier, and he, every time I see him on Facebook, he's telling the story, and I kind of don't believe him. But then again, if all this stuff is, if the military is talking about this stuff, and that pilot says what he says, and he saw what he saw, then how can you not believe these stories?
Well, there's a big difference. I still retain a bit of skepticism on a lot of this for this reason. At more than any other time in our history, everything is on video. We carry video with us. We have video in the automobiles. We have video all over our cities. We have people that carry specific video cameras just for that, not just smartphones.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find it challenging. I won't say impossible, but I find it challenging that we don't have more good video of things that have occurred in front of people. Now, having said that, people don't go into certain situations or locales. Hey, Mary Brockman, good to see you. And people don't go into certain locales and they say, you know what, I'm going to have a Bigfoot encounter, or I'm going to see a UFO tonight. Or when I go to sleep or I go into this particular hotel, I have a pretty good idea that I'm going to come in contact with some kind of a ghostly apparition inside. So when these things happen, folks are not prepared. I understand that completely. Or maybe these events are just take place so quickly, and folks are stunned that the first response is, well, hey, hang on there a second, UFO. I need to go get my video. So I understand that. I get that. But I'm just thinking I have to do the numbers. And the numbers tell me that pretty soon, if these things exist, somebody's going to get a really damn good video or photograph of this kind of stuff. But I don't know. Were you here at the beginning of the thing when Tucker Carlson spoke to the Air Force commander who was flying the FA-18 and saw the UFO?
Yeah, I heard that, and I also heard you read the article about Mr. Elizondo.
Right.
And I put in the chat room that he did appear on the Glenn Beck show earlier this week, talking basically about this. You know, so.
I find it interesting because Tucker Carlson's not a madman, and I think the reason that he wanted to have that specific guy on is because he lent his overall demeanor lends and his aptitude, his intelligence, his training, education, and experience all lend credence to what he had to say. That lends credence to his veracity. Here's an Air Force pilot that is highly trained in a situation like this, and even this guy, having seen a UFO, now the stuff is starting to come out. And with that kind of thing, how can you really doubt what this guy saw? I do not doubt in the slightest what he saw. Do we know for a fact that he saw a UFO? Well, literally, by definition, it was flying. It was unidentified, and it was an object. So, okay, technically that works. Do we know Do we know for a fact that it was not man-made? Well, I would suggest if it's exhibiting what I term non-ballistic movements, the possibility for that goes way up.
Yeah, you're right on that. And look, you talked about Harry Reid and how he got this funded, and I mean, I've always said this about politicians. If they want to get something funded, if they want to get a pet project funded, they'll find a way to get it funded. You know, he obviously wanted to get this project funded. And remember, you talked about Area 51. Area 50 and how far it goes back. I mean, Area 51 goes way back. It even goes back to the Blackbird, you know.
It's funny you should mention that. Yeah. That's another funny little pet project of mine is the Skunk Works, the Lockheed Skunk Works. You're talking about technology that was created in the 50s, and it was created there. There were no such things as computers back then that they could use to craft things in terms of engineering. These dudes all had slide rules and pocket protectors and short-sleeve white shirts with thick plastic glasses. And it was a completely analog aircraft. Now, it was first as the YF-12A. It was a single-seat fighter. Well, it wasn't. It was first designed to be a fighter, and then they decided that they were going to make it a reconnaissance vehicle. And then it changed to the SR-71 and became a two-up, a tandem, two individuals, pilot in the front, RSO in the rear, and it was completely unarmed. And the reason it was called the SR-71 is because President Johnson, who made the announcement, screwed it up. And he said it was SR-71. It was supposed to be an RS-71. So after Johnson said that it was an SR-71, the Air Force in its infinite wisdom said, okay, I guess it's an SR-71. And so the tag stuck. So when they were testing the YF-12A, they were testing out at Area 51. Also, when they were testing the SR-71, it was tested out at Area 51. The same for the F-117 and the same for the B-1 Spirit. So we know all of these things have been out in 51. That justifies fully the existence of this because, you know, the Air Force has stuff going on that they don't want folks like you and me to see. To the point where the federal government purchased a couple more mountain ranges that you can't get past in order to keep photographers further away The closest now that you can get to Area 51 is almost 15 miles. Now people get on tops of mountains with massive cameras and get they're not real good, but they still happen to get video and photographs of what's happening out there. Okay, the bottom line is... No, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No doubt, and that's the thing. I mean, we've seen... You talked about science fiction and movies and stuff and things that we've seen in movies. I mean, I remember a movie in the 80s called The Flight of the Navigator where the ship within 2 seconds goes, straight up in the air. And it was one of these things where you knew it was science fiction, but, I mean, and you were hearing these stories back then, these type of stories back then, even from the military from back then, where, you would hear, from World War II or from whatever, where you would hear these stories and you would hear, maybe you would be in a jet or something and you see some object, and this object would be there, and then within seconds it'd be gone, and these pilots would not understand why, or they reported it, and those reports would disappear,
Have you ever heard the term Foo Fighter?
Yes.
Okay. Besides being a group that I happen to really, really like, Dave Grohl from Nirvana, who plays drums, I happen to like the Foo Fighters. They're a group. But the name Foo Fighter, has been attached to alien UFOs, and it came back from World War II. There were World War II American aircraft that were paralleled, and some were even attacked by what they called Foo Fighters. And originally they thought that it might have been something wacky that came out of Germany, because Lord knows we've discovered after the paperclips materials that came out with the German engineers, we discovered that Germany had a wild assortment of aircraft and that they were working on things that now look like UFOs. And that's, oddly enough, where the title Foo Fighter came from. We've got another... I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
You have these reports, and I mean, it's not just from World War II. I've heard reports from Korea and from Vietnam, and I mean, you remember the old Coast to Coast radio show? That's why.
Oh my God, I loved Art Bell. I thought Art Bell had the coolest show in the world. I loved Art Bell's show.
I mean, that's mainly what he talked about. And later, the guy who eventually took over for him did the same type of stuff as well, And that's the thing. That's what he talked about, and basically he would bring these guys on, and either pilots or midshipmen or whatever that saw this stuff, and that's I mean, if you're getting reports from guys who are in the military, you can't dismiss military reports. I mean,
No.
I guess you can, but if you're getting multiple reports over decades and decades of these things, these phenomenon happening, you can't really dismiss it.
Well, the other thing is that a lot of the people that are making these observations in the air are professionals in the first place. Now, some of them are military-oriented, and some of them are commercial pilots. Some are general aviation pilots. So to me, just by dint of the fact of what they do and what it takes to become a pilot, whether you're flying for the military, whether you're flying commercially or private, you're generally going to be a very high-trained individual, and you're looking to the skies, and you can recognize something that fits and something that doesn't. And that's why inherently I give a lot more credence to people that are trained in this fashion than I do simply somebody that happens to be standing on the ground and may not know their arse from a hole in the ground itself.
And there's a reason why most of the people who've flown into space are ex-military. That's where they generally draw these people from. Is they draw these people from the Air Force. Lovell and all the rest of those guys that flew on the Apollo missions and the Geminis and those type of things are all ex-military, and that's why a lot of these reports I've heard from these ex-military guys, I believe,
Well, I believe them too, and they were all ex-military. They were Navy pilots, Air Force pilots, and there were even a couple of Marine pilots that happened to be in there as well. Nobody in chat. We still have a pretty good chat roll. We still got Jersey Joe. We got yourself there, Mike. We have Simone of Simone Says. We have the Mamba in there, Mary Brockman, and one viewer. Now, Carrie Baxter Donovan, if you happen to be listening, I also sent you a text, and I also sent you a message on Twitter. So, Carrie Baxter Donovan, if you happen to be listening, call back at about 3 or 4 or 5 after, and we're going to put you on the air and talk about some other things like that. Because after the top of the hour, I've given up on Alan. I'm going to have to find out what happened to him. I've sent him a couple of messages, and I've not yet received a reply. So this doesn't look very good, especially after I hyped the crap out of him all day on Facebook and on Twitter. So now I look like a moron. But, hey, these are the things. That's why I say show prep. Folks, it's all about show prep. Important safety tip from me to you. While we're here, Mike, have you ever had any experiences of anything that you just cannot explain yourself?
There was a time that, I'm in my neighborhood, and I'm one of these long, hot summer days that all my friends were either hunting or doing other things, and I'm sitting down, and all of a sudden, I see this dot in the air. This about the size of a mid-sized automobile.
Okay.
And it's sitting there, and it's a black dot, and it's just hovering there. And all of a sudden, within, it starts going from side to side, and then all of a sudden, within, let's say, 4 or 5 seconds, it's gone. Can't understand it. Didn't want to talk about it, but it's gone.
So tell folks where you are. I think you're down in the southern part of the United States, aren't you? Louisiana?
I'm in Louisiana.
Okay.
I'm on the bayou in Louisiana, and it was like I said, it was one of those really hot days, and I mean, you could. I'm between. My little neighborhood lives between a couple of oil, gas pipelines, natural gas pipelines. That, I mean, what was one of the things that was always said? Oh, it's a balloon gas, or it's gas, or it's a weather balloon, or whatever.
Yeah.
That type of thing. I wasn't gonna report this thing because I would have gotten, you live between these gas pipelines, and it's probably just something happened and exploded or whatever, which I knew at the time wasn't true because there wasn't any report of an explosion on the pipeline,
Okay.
So,
Mike, it's the top of the hour. We're going to have to go. I'm afraid to have to cut you off. Hey, boy, that was quick. I just got a text from Jersey Joe, and like I said, I haven't heard anything from Alan Thomas, and if I'm not mistaken, I think this might be Jersey Joe calling in, who said that he had an event occur to him. Now, I want to tell you about Jersey Joe. Jersey Joe is the guy that has the show on just before me, and he even said his daughter, like I said, I hyped the crap out of this all week on Facebook, on Twitter, and Jersey Joe said, even my daughter, Jordan, she wants to listen to this thing. So, number one, Jordan, I'm really sorry. I apologize to you. So, Jersey Joe, with the show that's on before me, the Reaver of Common Sense. Jersey Joe, what do you got? What do you got, mister?
How are you doing, BZ?
You're up late at night.
Oh, yeah, it's late here, but the wife and kid are still up. And my daughter kept telling me, well, call in, Dad. Call in for him. Which story would you like to hear?
Well, God, how many do you have? I'll take whatever you got, mister.
Well, I'll give you 2 quick ones off the top of my head, because I know you got Terry coming up soon.
Okay.
Day my father was shot, I was actually staying with a close family friend. And I was in the car. She was driving me to where the hospital was. And, I was 9 years old, and I'm crying my eyes out.
Oh, crap.
My head's up against the window, and all of a sudden, I heard my godmother, who had been dead for 2 years. I heard her voice just say to me, "He's going to be fine." And I had an instant relaxation, stop crying, stop being upset. So I figured, okay, maybe that one's nothing. Maybe that was in my head.
Okay.
That, about a year went by. Now, when my dad got shot, his boss got murdered also the same day.
So it was a robbery?
No, just a guy walked in, shot up the place, walked out.
A nut.
Yeah. My dad survived, but his boss got 2 shots, point blank, 357, right between the eyes. But I was, like a year later, I was in the shop walking, and all of a sudden, I saw my dad's boss walk across the shop. He looked towards me, nodded his head, and kept on walking and disappeared. Let me tell you, you're about 10 years old at that time. I don't want to say I was scared, but it was like, did I really just see what I think I saw?
Yeah. How do you react to that?
Yeah, it was just like, and I walked into the office. I was like, I just saw Bill. And my mom's like, what the hell are you talking about?
Sure. You're on
and
drugs,
I explained
kid.
it to her. Yeah, we're getting you drug tested immediately. And let's see, another one. 20, 21 years old, over a friend of mine's house that I had been told it's haunted, it's haunted, it's haunted.
Okay.
Never believed it. We're upstairs. We're in the bedroom, bunch of us, about 3 of us, having a private conversation. All of a sudden, the door pops open. Strange, because it was at the top of the steps. The house was built like the 1940s. So those steps were nice and crickety. And this is Trenton, New Jersey. Houses weren't kept up that great. So Joe, go shut the door. I get up, shut the door. Turn around, walk back to the group. They said, hey, you going to shut that door? And they start laughing. I'm like, what are you talking about? I turn around, door's wide open. Look down. You can hear someone. If they came up the steps, you would hear them.
Okay.
So shut the door. I said, this time I'm locking it. Tried the door, nothing. Got to the group. And I'm talking, you're taking like 3-4 steps to where the group is. Joe, you're going to shut that door, and they start laughing. Turn around, wide open and unlocked this time. So I hurry up, turn around, nobody there. Now, they said that there was an owner there during, I think, the 50s. He ran a business out of his house.
Okay.
The business went bankrupt. The wife took the wife and kids. So he walked into the basement and hung himself. So they said he had been haunting the place for years. The last story I can give you real quick. Me and my wife bought our house that we live in. And all of a sudden, we started to notice separately, and we never said anything at first. I'd be in there, all of a sudden I'd hear kids laughing. Nobody else is in the house.
Okay.
So I thought it maybe just my imagination again. A couple nights later, my wife tells me she hears the same thing. And for about a year, we would hear kids laughing in our house, like a group of kids. We never could pinpoint what it was. I would go outside to see what's going on, everything. Never could pinpoint exactly to what it was.
Okay. I'll tell you what, I'm getting a lot of feedback on this. Something is happening to Skype. Thanks for calling in. I'm going to have to zip out.
Yep.
Thank you ever so much, Jersey Joe, for that. I really appreciate it. And by the way, as a plug, folks, you can listen to Jersey Joe. He's on Monday through Friday. He's not going to be on tomorrow night, but he's or Monday because of Christmas. But customarily, Jersey Joe is on Monday through Friday on the SHR Media Network, shrmedia.com. And he starts just before me. He's on for 2 hours every night. How the hell he does it? He's a machine. Jersey Joe, you're a machine. And I start at 8 p.m. Pacific. You start at 6 p.m. Pacific and 9 o'clock Eastern, which is where you are in Florida. So, folks, Monday through Friday, Jersey Joe, you got to listen to him. Jersey Joe, thanks for calling in.
No problem. Merry Christmas to you, my brother, and Merry Christmas to everybody else.
Merry Christmas. My apologies to you about Alan, and say I'm sorry to Jordan for me, please.
I will. Don't worry about it, brother. It happens.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Okay. We are going to move on. Oh, wait a minute. Hell with the brakes. Let's take this. This is probably Carrie. Hey, is this Carrie?
This is Carrie. Hello.
Hey, great. Screw the brakes. We'll just go right to you. This is my show. I get to do any damn thing I want.
You can. You can do anything you want. You're having a night, aren't you?
Yeah. One of those nights
living
where
the dream.
Yeah, living the dream. That's right. One of those nights that you promote the crap out of something and then, okay, all right, I've beaten that cat to death. All right, hey,
right.
what I wanted to do,
something good will happen.
And I told you. Now, see, wasn't it kind of like premonition? Didn't I say? I said I wanted you on Thursday, and I said I've talked to Alan Thomas, but he hasn't gotten back to me, so I'm not exactly sure how long he wants to be on. So if you could be flexible, that would be great. So number one, God bless you for being flexible. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And so
thank you.
You're reliable, so I appreciate that as well. Folks, we're talking to Carrie Baxter Donovan. She has spoken on the show many times before. She is the East Coast political goddess. She has contacts in politics all across the fruited plain, but primarily up in the Northeast area where, it's like politics central up there, D.C. and the environs, Maryland, Virginia, etc. Tell folks where you are, though.
Well, I live outside of Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay. And how did you get into politics? Why did they become so interesting for you?
Well, I've been obsessed with politics since I can remember. Little kindergarten probably. And I would be talking about politics in kindergarten, and my teacher would try to tell me that, some of the other kids probably weren't interested in my political stories. They probably wanted me to talk more about like playground games and stuff, and I was always really confused by that. I think what started it was my grandmother was very political. She was a Democrat and a feminist, but she was one of the those first wave feminists.
Okay.
But she was very active in different groups, women's groups, talking about politics. She was probably one of the first activist, and she felt very connected with the whole Nixon story. Like she felt like she was really a part of something, and so she would just tell me a lot about that. And also, she was a daughter of the American Revolution, and so she would talk to me about what that meant to have ancestors who actually fought in the Revolutionary War. So it was my grandmother's fault, and it started when I was very little.
Okay. And so since that time, you've been interested in politics. And I told you that, I talked to Dan Butcher, the number one guy in media, in Texas at least. And Dan and I spoke for the entire 2 hours. And one of the things that I wanted that I spoke to him about was the thing that I wanted to talk to you about. And then we'll tickle your brain housing group about some other things in just a moment. But I wanted to get your take on what you thought, because it's the end of the year. Monday's Christmas. The next Monday after that, boom, 2018 comes in. What do you happen to think were some of the most significant or even overblown, overrated stories or events of 2017? So a couple of things that are just going to stick in your wheelhouse as long as you can remember. Anything pop up into your brain about that?
Oh, and I'm going to have a lot, but the one that popped into my brain and then I later thought about for a while was what I think it was the most exciting story and impactful was President Trump's big-time wrestling tweet. Because
all the people that created all those memes?
The memes. And when he retweeted that meme, I felt the stratosphere. You want to talk about UFO? I don't know. I mean, you know that I've always been a Trump supporter. From way back, I was getting kicked around, and I'm like, I'm a Trump supporter. I'm in. I am sold out for Trump. That guy has, like, shaken my stratosphere. So I have studied all of this time, all of these political movements, politicians. You know, I was involved with cultural Marxism. I was a community organizer. You know, I worked in doing job developing with felons during the riots. Like, you know, I just like seen all these different people and different things. I have never seen anybody like President Trump. But that tweet, I think, changed a lot of dynamics. It is like a total shift for many people because he's so out of the box. He is so undignified. Isn't he a deplorable? I mean, and that tweet just to me was so unpresidential and awesome. So that would be my pick.
My pick would be this. For the end of 2016 and certainly all of 2017. And I think you of all people would probably agree with me about this. I've said it before, and that's this. November 8th occurred. And the Democrats, not one of them, have managed to transition over to Wednesday, November 9th. They decided the next day that they were going to create the meme of Trump and Russia and elections and hacking. And they found it, they laid it on thick, and they stayed with it. And the thing that I find so delicious, I call it schadenfreude. The thing that I find so delicious is more and more every day with each passing week, we find the people that are actually involved in corruption, injustice, and even in league with Russia itself. Wait the fuck until you hear some of the stories I have later about you want corruption? Oh, my God. Tab after tab after tab after tab that have just occurred in the past week. And it gets better, Carrie. It gets better every damn day because all these fingers come back. They all come back, and they start pointing to the Democrats. Worse and worse and
been
deeper.
Waiting for so long. I saw a trailer tonight for the movie Chappaquiddick. Now, I remember when I was a little kid, and I was obsessed with this, like, what is everybody whispering about this Chappaquiddick for? And I went to the library, and I found a bunch of books, and I just read and read and read. And I just, you know, I get really involved in these stories. And so, you know, for a long time there has been so much corruption. And people knew about it, and they would whisper about it, but nobody wanted to confront it. And then Trump rolls in, and he's just like, how about if I just, like, in your face, right? And so he's exposing all of this corruption. He's forcing this corruption to get exposed. Actually, tonight, just a little while ago, while I was reading about his very latest executive order from, like, I don't know, 8 or 9 hours ago, it occurred to me, oh my gosh, I almost can't look. What is mounting against the left right now and the corruption that's going to be exposed, and knowing they're too slow, they can't move out of the way. They don't even know what's coming. You know, it's shocking with all everything that we see that's going to start coming out.
Well, look,
and I almost am embarrassed. Like, I can't even. It's almost like a slow train wreck. I can't look because they don't even know how. They don't even know how to respond. They're so stuck in this, like, Russia hacking. Some of them, I think, actually do believe that. But it's what a wild time we live in right now.
Oh my God! The Chinese. It was. They said, "May you live in interesting times," which is the Chinese equivalent of "Hey, fuck you," okay? Fasta mazul. And so we are living in interesting times. The thing I find so delicious is now Uranium One and that deal that is coming to light. Now Hillary Clinton and her corruption,
and hey,
it's coming to light.
And if you watched any of that Bundy trial, which all of the rednecks and deplorables and undesirables were watching on live stream, just eating up everything that we could find out about Bundy Ranch. None of the mainstream media, that's the other thing, you know, to watch them get completely cremated has been awesome and beautiful this year. But the whole Bundy Ranch story, I think, was the biggest story that the media completely ignored. And that has, I believe, from what I remember of the story, we're going to find out that it had something to do. All of these things are going to start to come out now, right? The uranium in the Bundy Ranch, and the stealing natural resources and people's land, and all of this. It's almost like a million years ago when Obama was in office, and all of these things we were just like, watching on live stream and trying to get little tidbits from someone's social media or something, and now it's out.
Well, you mentioned
so
that.
exciting.
You mentioned that, so we're going to go to that right now. Here's an article from the Washington Times, one of my many tabs that I had pulled up.
Mm-hmm.
This occurred
22, you said.
This occurred just like you said today. Attorney General Sessions orders examination of Bundy case after mistrial over prosecution bungling. Government failed.
See, I didn't even know about that.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Government failed to turn over evidence. This came out of Fox News.
gosh.
This came out of the Washington Times. The Bundy trial was a full mistrial itself. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this, but I'm going to play a sound bite so that kind of clues folks in as to what happened on this.
Bundy will remain in federal custody. Both of his sons expected this case to fall apart, and they maintain their innocence in all this. This was the scene moments after the judge declared a mistrial this morning. Ammon Bundy and his brother Ryan say they will absolutely see this through until the end. A judge suspended the proceedings last week to review whether prosecutors held key evidence back from the defense in that 2014 armed standoff in Bunkerville, Nevada. Today, the federal judge says there was no way this case could move forward.
We lived it. We understood what was going on and what wasn't going on, and we can see that things were being withheld because of our firsthand knowledge. Yeah, we knew the truth. And I've always said, I am not afraid of the truth. The truth will set me free.
Cliven Bundy's attorney says that there is a hearing set for January 8th. That is when a judge could decide if this will head towards a retrial. Joe Bartels, 13 Action News.
So the article goes like this. It says, Attorney General Jeff Sessions stepped into the Bundy prosecution after Wednesday's mistrial, ordering a third-party examination of the case in light of the latest government snafu. Quote, the Attorney General takes this issue very seriously and has personally directed that an expert in the Justice Department's discovery obligations be deployed to examine the case and advise as to the next steps, said Ian Pryor, the department's principal deputy director of public affairs, in a late Wednesday statement. Boom. Bing.
Oh my
right
gosh.
there.
And I almost have goosebumps because I remember when Glenn Beck went on a tirade, and I was so mad at him. I wanted to punch him right in the throat. He went after, just unruly people, and he really laid it on thick. And I remember thinking to myself, when are we ever going to win one? We, the good guys, who really want this corruption to stop. How did he, a supposed intelligent person, not see the play, see what was happening? I get really worked up about that when people don't understand, like they can't connect the pieces, right? So, this story was maddening for me because it was so obvious, it was so corrupt. And so I'm very excited. I guess I knew that there was a mistrial, but I got lost in other stories. Like you said, there's so many stories now. I got lost in the story. I didn't realize that Sessions was going to take it further.
The decision to intervene came after Chief U.S. District Court Judge Gloria Navarro declared a mistrial over the government's willful failure to disclose information. In Fed speak, that's an uppercut. That's a right to the jaw. As she said this to the defense, saying it would have been impossible for the 4 co-defendants to receive a fair trial. Failure to turn over such evidence violates due process, Judge Navarro said in the courtroom. The Arizona Republic reported a fair trial at this point is impossible. Nevada rancher Cliven Bundy, his sons Ammon and Ryan Bundy, and Ryan Payne of Montana have been charged with 15 felony counts stemming from the 2014 armed standoff with the BLM at the Bundy Ranch near Bunkersville. So it's like this. Knowing this, it's unprecedented, really. Knowing this, though, the attorney, Mistrial, yeah. You going to try him again? Good luck on that one. And because already this is growing, this is a little bit of a tsunami all on its own.
It really is. There are just one right after the next coming, I think, the next year.
You're going to find, you're going to see, I'm going to see, we're all going to find out that the things that we suspected were going on during the Obama administration were in fact occurring. That instead of one of the most transparent administrations ever, just as he promised, history will turn out to show this was one of the most corrupt and opaque administrations in the history of the U.S. government. I am absolutely convinced of that.
Yeah, and things that you and I know about that the average American who isn't obsessed with politics and the news, they're going to be shocked. And I remember it was probably 3 years ago when I ran into a guy, and I wish I remember his name. He was renting a house out in New Hampshire next to the house where I was staying, so he wasn't a regular guest. It was his first time there. And anyway, I was out walking my dog, and he was walking his dog, and we ended up chatting, and I was an early Trump supporter, so it wasn't that long ago. But anyway, we talked about that. We talked about Hillary Clinton, and somehow it came up in conversation, and he ended up telling me he was some bigwig in the Homeland Security, retired, right?
Okay.
And he said, let me tell you something. He said, what the problem that you're going to have is it's not terrorists. It's not ISIS terrorists. It's going to be the people who really believed in Hillary Clinton. When they find out the denial that they're going to have to go through, they can be very dangerous. And he told me that. And at the time, I thought, oh, come on, it can't be that bad, because I just wanted to all come out and just go, ha-ha, right? You were wrong, and she's corrupt, and he's corrupt, and all of this. And he was telling me, no, that's what they talk about in the FBI. It's the Americans who have been, just kind of going along about their day, or who really are true believers in Obama and Hillary. When they find out really what's been going on, it's going to be a little bit of a dangerous time as well.
Well, so he was trying to intimate that he believes that there's going to be rioting because the Clintons were proven to be corrupt?
I don't know that he meant rioting, but he just said they can be dangerous. I just remember him saying they could be dangerous. I don't think he meant, to what degree, but that they're going to be very upset, and that they could be so upset they could become dangerous.
Okay.
To themselves or to people, but he didn't say anything about rioting or anything. But
then
I don't know if you've had a conversation with a leftist lately, and they just go go off. The conflict that they must be feeling when they find out the things that they believed were not true. That's the downside of it. But the upside of it is we've waited for so long for this stuff to come out, and I say let the chips fall where they may.
Absolutely.
And we'll deal with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. We got about another 6 more minutes before the bottom of the hour break, and by God, I actually am going to have to take a break this time. Carrie Baxter Donovan, the East Coast political goddess, you're talking about the Clintons. Have I got a story for you? And I bet...
Talk it to me.
I bet... you haven't heard this one, and I bet a lot of people haven't heard this one. And when you hear it, you're going to say, number one, oh my fuck. And the second thing you're going to say is, now I understand why this information is not out in the general public. This is from a strange little website that I found, and it indicates the headline is this. I hope you're all sitting down. Do you know Tammy Jackson? Have you ever heard of Tammy Jackson from the Tammy Jackson Show? She comes from Hugh Hewitt. She knows Jeff Dunetz. I'm sure you've heard of Jeff Dunetz.
Yes.
Okay.
And Hugh Hewitt. And so I think it probably, but, I don't.
She wrote a series. I'll just cut to the chase. She wrote a series of articles, and I talked to her about a week and a half ago. She wrote a series of articles called The 41 Dead Bodies of the Clintons. In other words,
Right.
gee, with all these people falling dead all around the Clintons, I wonder if there's a story behind there. And there was.
Right.
And it was a continuing massive story of situation after situation after situation where people that were linked to the Clintons, and she had tons of attributions from big-time journalist sources, New York Times, Washington Post, etc., etc., proving that bodies were falling all around the fruited plain wherever the Clintons were involved. Well, here's an article I just discovered that I sent to Tammy Jackson. Doctor who exposed Clinton Foundation corruption in Haiti found dead. Yet another individual involved with exposing the fraud of the Clinton Foundation, to the surprise of no one, has turned up dead. This time with a knife in the chest. Yet for all those well-versed on the money oddities and inconsistencies that always seem to follow the mysterious deaths in relation to the Clinton family, even the knife in the chest will not seem to officially rule out the proclamation of suicide, or as those privy to the previous cases have taken to calling it, being suicided. In this case, Dr. Dean Launch, a prominent Manhattan surgeon, was sadly found dead on the bathroom floor of his apartment by his 11-year-old daughter. Dr. I think it's Lorich, I think I mispronounced that one, was known for many different aspects of his career, yet one particular aspect seems to stand out. That was his desire to expose the staggering inadequacies of the medical trauma care that was promised to the Haitian people by the Clinton Foundation after it had raised over $30 million in donations following the 2010 earthquake. While Dr. Lorich was working overseas in Haiti, he had discovered that not only was the medical treatment promised by the Clinton Foundation nowhere near what $30 million should have provided, but that the treatment was almost non-existent. In January of 2010, Dr. Lorich decided to send an email to a confidant detailing this affront to the Haitian people, which ended up being forwarded to Cheryl Mills, who at the time was chief of staff to none other than Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. The doctor's correspondence, provided by WikiLeaks, was highly critical of how the situation in Haiti was being handled. This is a quote. Disaster management on the ground was non-existent. Cheerios on the tarmac are not getting it done on these patients, which clearly would be savable if good care could urgently be provided. While this in and of itself is quite damning, considering how the anguish of the Haitian people had been used to garner funds that were clearly not being used appropriately, this email was only a prelude to what came next. Dr. Lorich then publicly decried the horribly inept conditions in Haiti within a CNN piece entitled "Doctors, Haiti Medical Situation Shameful." This is another quote. We got about a minute before I go to the break. Once we arrived, we saw a severely damaged hospital with no running water and only limited electrical power supplied by a generator. Surgeries were being performed in the equivalent of a large storage closet where amputations were performed with hacksaws. This facility could not nearly accommodate our equipment or our expertise to treat the volume of injuries we saw. Well, this article continues. It goes on and on and on about what had happened and what happened to him. And so the bottom line is this. Here's another body that falls, presumably, at the behest of the Clintons, although I don't know for a fact, but this is another in a continuing series where if this, you riddle me this, Carrie Baxter Donovan, had this series of deaths been attributed to anyone in the GOP, don't you suspect that there would have been investigation after investigation after investigation, and it would have started, I don't know, a decade ago, 11 years ago.
Right. I remember reading back in 97 and 98 online on Free Republic lists of people who had mysteriously died around Hillary Clinton, and the things that she had been involved with, the Rose Law Firm, and all of those things. And
Vince
I think
Foster.
that it's probably pretty well documented that I believe that Hillary Clinton is a psychopath. And I think that probably anyone who's been around her on either side, Republican or Democrat, probably many of them have post-traumatic stress from dealing with her and are scared to death of her because of how many deaths there are, which is part of the reason why she's never investigated for anything, for any reason. And part of the reason why she could have this trail of dead bodies and still run for president. But no, if it was anybody in the GOP, listen, Hillary's got the biggest balls in the universe because she will commit a crime and boldface, she will defend herself. That's one thing about her that the GOP, they can't even come close to. They'll just run away in fear with their tail between their legs. That woman is fearless. Part of the reason she's fearless, I think, is because she's a psychopath. But no, if nobody else could do an iota of what Hillary has done, I think it's because people are so scared to death of her.
Folks, we got to take a break. We've been talking to Carrie Baxter Donovan. Thanks for being on. Now you've been tell us where you can be read, because now you're still writing articles at a particular blog on a website now, aren't you?
Yes, for Big League Politics.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have any new articles that have come out recently?
Well, I just wrote one that's in draft, so tomorrow it should be out tomorrow. But today, the article that I wrote was about Betsy DeVos and what she's been through over the last year. And so there's a fresh article up, and go check it out because I'm actually proud of this one. It wasn't something that would have been on my radar right away, but as I started to look into it, I just found myself growing really proud of Betsy DeVos and the Trump administration and just what they're going through personally to try to deliver to us back our freedom and our liberty. And that's really a common theme through the Trump administration and all of these nominations that I think that he's trying to pick. It's returning power back to the people. And that's part of the reason why the establishment and the left is they're so shell-shocked. You saw that with the tax reform. They don't know what to do, and it's coming at them. And I think that's all going to start to speed up too, right?
Oh, yes.
So we're going to have a lot of things to write about. More and more things are just going to get thrown at them, and we're going to watch them just kind of sizzle. But anyway, yes, I'm over at Big League Politics.
Okay.
And, of course, on Facebook and Twitter.
Let me throw this out. I don't know if you're going to be around next week, but if you're around on Tuesday and the article comes out beforehand, and I'm guessing it will, would you be interested in coming on Tuesday and talking about your article?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Always. I love talking to you.
Okay.
I love watching your lava lamp, too.
Thank you. Tell you what, let's make a plan for this. I'm going to have Dan maybe call in about 8:20 or so, and then for at least 15 to 20 minutes, I'd like to talk to you about your article and some of the things that you've got going on there. Folks, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have been talking to the East Coast political goddess. It is Carrie Baxter Donovan, and I have to say thank you ever so kindly for calling in. We are finally going to go to a break, and we'll be back for the final segment right after this. Carrie, thank you ever so kindly.
Thank you so much. I love it. Okay, have a great
done
night.
Right.
Thank you.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplainstalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on shrmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk, the Sackheads Radio Show, only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it again. Some of the best A-roll is going to be evil. Like, what are you talking about? Just the last question you really cut a couple seconds. Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Good point. Exactly right.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
You are, in fact, listening to the SHR Media Network. It's me, your friendly little pugnacious one, the overblown, bloviating Zeppelin, right here live and direct from the beautimous SHR Media Network studio. It's Thursday, the year of our Lord, December 21st, 2017. I apologize for the screw-up we had earlier this evening. I am going to attempt to get Alan Thomas back. It may have been just that, just an overlook by himself, and because he does in fact have some interesting things to say, and if I can pull this show off, I think it will be well worth it. So I'm not giving up. Alan, if you happen to be listening, or any of your fans, or any of the folks that still happen to be left in chat, though they were heartbroken and tears were running down their eyes. I saw really down their cheeks. I will put together a paranormal show, and I have a better idea of how I need to conduct myself on this in terms of confirmations. However, I will do it. We will pull it out, guaranteed, and I'm going to go through the same promotional stuff again. But in the meantime, we're going to go into some stuff as to why you're here in the first place, and as I quantified all the buttery political goodness that you could ever want. And was there ever an arseload of lugubrious crap that occurred this past week, even though it's only Thursday, and tomorrow could be a whole new bunch of crap that's all pointing right back to corruption on behalf of the Demorats. Continuously. I think what this is leading up to is I truly do think that as the result of such and so many corrupt forces aimed at trying to dethrone Donald Trump, to get in his way even before he was duly elected under the rule of law, we're going to find out that after he was elected, the conspiracy / RICO still continued. And I think it's going to reach up to the highest elements of government on the previous administration. It's going to reach into the highest elements of many law enforcement agencies, specifically to include the FBI and the DOJ. I can't forget the IRS. They will be involved as well. Any element, any administration, pick a cabinet that attempted to obstruct Donald Trump and his administration prior to the election, post-election, you're going to, I believe, see something that's going to shake this country to its very foundations. People are mentioning that, oh, this might be bigger than Watergate. 2 words, fuck that. No, this will not be bigger than Watergate. This potentially could be the largest American scandal ever. Here's a story that I got from the Washington Times. This just came out today. Now, I have to qualify that. Today is still today on the left coast because I'm broadcasting 2 miles from the belly of the beast. You know, I'm broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, and I'm 2 miles away from the state capital. So we're on left coast time. It's 9:43, and it's already the next day on the right coast. So this, for you guys, this occurred yesterday. For me, it's still today. In any event, this is from the Washington Times. The headline goes like this: faced with a libel lawsuit, dossier crafter, that author who wrote the dossier, Christopher Steele, hedges, imagine this, hedges on linking Trump to Russia. Why? It's because of you and me. It's called pushback, is it not? I believe it is.
According to an article by Business Insider, Christopher Steele, the former British intelligence officer who wrote the dossier alleging ties between Donald Trump and Russia, told The Guardian that he believes Trump's land and hotel deals with Russians need to be examined. Steele was apparently referring specifically to a 2008 home sale to Russian oligarch Dmitry Roybovalev, a multi-billionaire who bought a Palm Beach property from Trump for $95 million in 2008, 2 years after Trump put it on the market for $125 million. Rybovalev's cash infusion into Trump's bank account is believed to be the most expensive home sale in U.S. history.
Stop right there. Now, oddly enough, that came from another area, but I wanted to let you hear how some of the mainstream media, what I term the American media maggots, how they're crafting it one way, and this article now reads this way. Christopher Steele, the former British spy who fueled an ongoing investigation into President Trump's administration, was a lot more confident of his charges when he wrote his now notorious 2016 dossier than he is today in defending it in a libel lawsuit. Imagine that. While Mr. Steele stated matter-of-factly in his dossier that collusion between Mr. Trump and the Russian government took place, he called it only possible months later in court filings. While he confidently referred to trusted sources inside the Kremlin, in court he referred to the dossier's limited intelligence. In recent weeks, the dossier of opposition research has taken on added importance in the debate over the FBI and Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into suspected Russia coordination and whether it had bias against the Trump people. Congressional Republicans are demanding that the FBI explain how the deeply contested Democrat-financed document took on such importance in a major government investigation. Steele wrote 35 pages of that. The bulk of it turned out to be bullshit. Here's what potentially, I submit, is going to rock absolutely the foundations of the U.S. federal government. And if people thought that confidence in the federal government was bad, it potentially could get infinitely worse. And that's this. We've all been hearing about dossier. I said this last week, but I'm going to say it again because I think this is where this is all heading. And wait until if you like this article, just wait until you get to the next article of corruption. But it's heading this way. I believe that this Russian dossier was produced as evidence by the FBI, trotted into a FISA court in order to get warrants to wiretap Trump and his associates prior to the election. And it's from this fruit of the poison tree, which already Steele, the author of this, is being sued for libel. And now he's backtracking on his words. And the reason you're not hearing any real, true information come out from the FBI is because now they're beginning to realize that they are deeply, that Comey specifically deeply involved, the FBI, in all of this, and that everything was a frame job against Donald Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head, because they didn't care for him. He wasn't their guy. He was a Republican, and they're going to pull out, they pulled out all the stops on him. There will be a RICO. There is an easy RICO case on all of this. Well, you heard about the libel suit and the dossier. Now hear about this. This is from the Daily Signal. Obama Justice Department's $1 billion, with a B, $1 billion slush fund boosted liberal groups. Gosh, I wonder what would have happened if a Republican Department of Justice had spent $1 billion towards conservative groups. What is the Department of Justice doing throwing money after political ends? Gosh, wasn't it all the Democrats who were saying the FBI, the NSA, the DOJ, these are not politically oriented administrations at all. They're not politically oriented organizations, except that we're finding that more and more every day. Yes, they are. If for no other place than certainly at the top. President Barack Obama's Justice Department created a slush fund of nearly $1 billion, using legal settlements with banks, and steered those funds to political allies on the lefts while excluding conservative groups, internal documents show. So what they're doing is using essentially their ill-gotten gains from various settlements against banks and took that money from lawsuits and diverted it not to the DOJ, but diverted it into leftist organizations. Tony West, an associate attorney general during the Obama administration who was now a top official at PepsiCo, figures prominently in a chain of email messages involving his staff members, the records show. The financial institutions, which made legal settlements with the Obama administration regarding mortgage securities that imploded during the 2008 financial crisis, included Bank of America, Citicorp, Goldman Sachs, and J.P. Morgan Chase. Public records of the settlement agreements with the Justice Department show that when cash donations to liberal groups are combined with other donations in the form of loans and a separate settlement with Volkswagen of America, the slush fund may have topped $3 billion. But hell, I guess that's okay. I'm sure it would be okay if a Republican DOJ was doing something like that. Don't you think? Oh, hell yeah. Public records of the settlement agreements with the Justice Department show that when cash donations to liberal groups are combined with other donations in the... Oh, wait, I already read that. It's about $3 billion. The House Judiciary Committee obtained the internal Justice Department documents as part of an investigation conducted in conjunction with the House Financial Services Committee. The emails suggest the Obama administration targeting of conservative organizations was not limited to the actions of Lois Lerner, the official who was in charge of an IRS division that processed various groups' applications for tax-exempt status. A 2013 Inspector General's report found that Lerner's division delayed and obstructed the applications of Tea Party and other conservative groups. In a similar fashion, the Justice Department documents show that West's staff went to great lengths to prevent conservative organizations from receiving any of the settlement funds, but of course, there's no bias there. There's nothing to see there. All of these articles that I've read, they go on and on and on. And there's so many to read, there's just no time to go through all of them. Let's go to another one. This has a lovely little soundbite to it. The headline is this: Hillary Clinton campaign, DNC, accused of corrupt money scheme in new FEC complaint. That's the Federal Election Commission. It just keeps on
Those are the
going.
people I listen to. Those are the people that I respond to. I wanted them to know how hard we work to elect Hillary Clinton and other Democrats up and down the ticket.
That was former DNC Chair Donna Brazile on this show last night. Brazile's new book has exposed a lot of what seems to be unseemly collusion between the Democratic National Committee and the Hillary Clinton for President campaign. While Brazile condemns that arrangement, she also insists it was legal, all of it. Cleta Mitchell has been around campaign and finance for a long time, and she's not so sure. She's an attorney and a campaign finance law expert, a Republican. Cleta Mitchell joins us tonight.
Sadly, I don't have enough time to play the rest of this because I've got to get to the grist. I've got to get to the bunch of it. You need to hear this, and you're not. I bet you're not hearing this. Constantly pummeled into the side of your face by the American media maggots. Of course you're not. That's why you come here. A new legal complaint filed with the Federal Election Commission, that's the FEC, alleges that the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democrat National Committee, the DNC, used state chapters as straw men to circumvent campaign donation limits and laundered the money back to her campaign. Hold that thought. Laundering money. Wait until you hear the next story, and I'm not even done with this one yet. The Committee to Defend the President, a political action committee, filed its complaint with the FEC on Monday with the allegations that the Hillary Victory Fund, HVF, solicited cash from big-name donors, including Calvin Klein and Family Guy creator Seth MacFarlane, money that was allegedly sent through state chapters and back to the DNC before ending up in the Clinton campaign. Officials with the committee said their filing was spurred by their own analysis of FEC reports, where they said they discovered the HVF either never transferred the money to state chapters and back to the DNC, or did so without the state chapters having actual control. But gosh, BZ, wait, there's more. If I can find it, I know it's here. Oh, here we go. This is a lovely little story that I'm sure you're going to love. This is like, let me preface this way. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, back when I was working in detectives, I was working a case involving the Hells Angels, a motorcycle club in California, actually all across the world. And you know what the Hells Angels are. They're called the Red and White because those are the colors of the Hells Angels. Down at the corner of Manzanita and Auburn Boulevard was a place called Red and White Motors. It was a car lot, but it was a Hells Angels car lot, one in which they were used to launder money. Here's another article. Like I said, but wait, there's more. This is from dailycaller.com. House IT aides, that's information technology, House IT aides ran car dealership with markings of a nefarious money laundering operation. Well, it doesn't get any better than that. The used car dealership known as CIA never seemed like an ordinary car dealership with inventory, staff, and expenses. On its Facebook page, CIA's staff were fake personalities such as James Falls O'Brien, whose photo was taken from a hairstyle model catalog, and Jade Julia, whose image came from a page called Beautiful Girls Wallpaper. If a customer showed up looking to buy a car from Cars International A, often referred to as CIA, Abid Awan, who was managing partner of the dealership while also earning $160,000 a year handling IT for House Democrats, would frequently simply go across the street to another dealership called AAA Motors and get a car. If AAA borrows a car to Cars International and they have a customer, it was simply to take the car across the street and sell it and then later on give the profit back or not. Nasir Khatak, who ran the long-standing AAA dealership, testified in the lawsuit. There was no documentation. If you go and try to dissect, you will not be able to make any sense out of them because there were many, many dozens and dozens of cars transferred between the two dealerships and between other people. Khatak did not explain why he would ruin his existing business to help the Awans. All of those transactions were to support Cars International A. From AAA Motors, he testified, that's why I did not make any money from my dealership because my resources were supporting Cars International A. He said only Imran Awan knew what became of the money. It was Imran Abid, Awan's brother, who was running the business in full control. This is the buttery goodness part. Imran Awan and his family members were congressional IT aides who investigators said made unauthorized access to the House Democrat caucus server thousands of times, at the same time as they worked for and could read all of the emails of congressmen who sat on committees like Intelligence, Homeland Security, and Foreign Affairs. While that's going on, they also ran a car dealership that took money from a Hezbollah-linked fugitive and whose financial books were indecipherable and business patterns bizarre, according to testimony in court. Oh my fucking God! And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Monsieur!
We are coming to a crash, ladies and gentlemen. There is going to be a massive crash in this government. I see it now. I'm predicting it now. And folks, I want to thank you for listening tonight to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. I know you were disappointed. I was. I'm still going to try to get Alan Thomas back because I think he has a unique and interesting tale to tell on the SHR Media Network. You know, if you want to contact me, you can always find me on Twitter at bzep, on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. You want to send me a hate email like other people have done? Why should you be any different? bz@shrmedia.com. Promotional consideration by Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And of course, Pratt & Whitney engines thrust you can trust. Thanks also to my personal KC-135 Get to 1 refueling team, with whom I will be consorting shortly. Thanks for listening. God bless. Take care. Thanks for being in chat. Have a very Merry Christmas. See you next Tuesday. God bless.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.